Hey, what's going on, guys? Okay, so today I want to introduce you guys to something that's been in my head for approximately 2 years. So let's go back a little ways. About 2 years ago, I'd started replacing a lot of my older knives and equipment and started getting newer stuff. During that time, I was coming across a lot of knives and everything else. Some knives very cheap and performed very well, some expensive knives and that did not perform well. So I started thinking about all the things that I could do with a knife, combining a whole bunch of the things that I've touched, and try to come up with my own knife. Problem was I just didn't have the resources for it. You know, custom knives are very, very expensive to have built unless you know the right people. And at that time, I just didn't know the right people. So I started making leather goods and everything else for the knives that I was acquiring because, quite frankly, the sheaths that they came with were junk. And it's basically built. And I've met a whole lot of really great people, including a lot of custom knife makers. So what I've been able to do is I've been able to take the knives that have worked for me or the knives that haven't worked for me and kind of combine them and come up with a knife that I think is truly a one knife for the rest of your life. Let me show you what I've got. This here is called the StalkenWolfe. I have contacted a gentleman by the name of Michael Pryor. Most of you guys know him, especially if you've been following me for any given time. Michael does an outstanding job when it comes to making knives and everything else. 01 tool steel, top-notch steel, and the guy is legendary for his edge. I mean, he can put an edge on a knife like nobody's business, and it maintains that edge like nobody's business. And he has a way of combining beauty and function all together. So I knew that this was the man that I wanted to contact for this project. You know, and people had been joking with myself and Michael for some time that we needed to team up and do something. His knife, put it in my leather, and do something along them lines. So, you know, it was time that we did it. And this is what we've done. We have come up with the StalkenWolfe. Now, the sheath that you see on this knife here, okay, this is not going to be the sheath. This is a prototype sheath, a prototype knife. The sheath is going to change drastically. You will still have a place for two loops. You will still have a place for a ceramic rod and a place for a ferro rod. They just won't be orientated like this. So I'm not even going to really discuss the sheath. Here is the knife. Like I said, 3/16 01 tool steel, and this thing has an edge on it like nobody's business. The handle was very important to me. I wanted the handle to be very comfortable and form-fitting to the hand, and I have had many people hold this knife already, and everybody really compliments on that handle and says how nice it feels in their hand. The 3/16 I think is a perfect balance between a 1/4-inch blade and an 1/8-inch blade. I mean, 1/8-inch blades, don't get me wrong, they're very strong and they're more than capable of doing a lot of things that people don't necessarily think that they can do. They can. But if you're looking at a one knife for the rest of your life, it's not necessarily a bad thing to go ahead and beef it up just a little bit. 1/4 inch, in my opinion, is just a little too big. I mean, at that point, you might as well just have a crowbar. So like I said, I think that the 3/16 is a perfect blend of it. Now, before I discuss the future of the Wolfe Custom STKR StalkenWolfe, let's go ahead and take a look and see just what this knife can do, so that way you know if you end up getting one of these knives, you're getting the best knife that you can for the money. Now, before we really get into it, let me just show you how sharp this knife really is. Never mind the bare white legs, because, well, I don't ever wear shorts. So let's just take a look here, shall we? Can you see that? I'm just barely touching that knife to my leg. And it is so sharp that that hair is literally jumping off in fear. I'm not shaving it off, it's just jumping off in fear. And well, you guys can appreciate a good blade like that. So one of the things that larger blades like this usually have a hard time with is feather sticking or smaller carving work. So let's just see if it's a problem. Look at those fine curls I'm getting. And you can see that I'm not struggling at all with that. No problem at all. Not a problem at all. Look at that knife bite. Sucker bites deep. I believe a knife's ability to get fine feather sticks is very important. So if you can get fine feather sticks, you know that the carving ability of this knife is going to be nice. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is phenomenal. Okay, so looking around the area that I'm at right now, there's not a whole lot of larger wood that's dead standing. So I might have to move to a different location in order to find larger wood. But let's go ahead and see what I can find in here. And let's do everybody's favorite, the batoning, and see just how well this knife would do with that. Okay, so from aside from the log that I'm cutting on and chopping on, I'm having a hard time finding larger dead standing logs, which is okay, because don't worry, I am going to find some and we're going to put this baby through them. But for now, let's just start off with something like this and see what she does. See what kind of wedge. Oh yeah, I don't know if you can see that or make out that wedge right there, but it's doing a mighty fine job. Now, a couple days ago, or about a week ago, whatever it's been now, I had made a video using the GSO 4.1, and y'all saw the difficulties that I was having performing certain tasks with that knife. Keep in mind that the wood that I'm using here today is the exact same type of wood. It's cottonwood. Now I can tell you right now, I am definitely going to, well, break my baton. I am definitely going to have to search for some larger logs, because this knife is not even having an issue with this, not even in the least. Splitting wood, keeping all that inner fiber for tinder, boys. Like I said, this is the same wood that I was having a hard time carving the other day with the GSO. And you can see StalkenWolfe makes short work of it. No problem. Okay, since I'm not finding any larger logs in this specific area, I'm going to scoot this knife out just a little bit, so that way when I baton, I'm batoning on the point. We're going to see how it does. Now, technically speaking, I should probably get myself a new baton, since I broke this one for a little bit of leverage, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. I think it'd be just fine. If it breaks, then I'll get a new one. It's about to break on me. Let me find a new one right quick. I'll leave that knife exactly where it's at. My baton is getting destroyed by the tip. Look at that. Okay. Obviously, if I was going to do that again, I would bite in a little deeper, and that would not be a problem to baton at that point. But the fact that I'm sitting there banging on just the tip is going to make it a little harder as far as leverage wise. But you can see that the tip not only withstood, but it just decimated my baton. So let's move on and see what other troubles I can find and get into with this knife. Alright, I don't know if you guys can see out there, but all week we've had a whole lot of storms come in. This whole area has been flooded. I mean, a major flash flood came through here, which means we're going to find pools of water in places that are completely cut off from the main source of water. So there could be some fish trapped. So let's see about making a little gigging spear right quick. If we were in search of some shallow pools, get some fish.
Now I can assure you, if I was out here truly looking for food, I'd have something that's longer and preferably a little bit more straight than what I got here. But for demonstration purposes, I think this will be okay. Alright, now I'm not looking to point this off, as all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of rounding it off. I mean, I got a saw, and I could saw it off right now, but the video isn't about a saw, it's about the knife. Alright, that should work. Now we should be able to split this down a little bit. Going to go gentle. Don't need to get severe with it. Good. Now you can see we have 4 forks when we decide to flare it out. And we can use this bark to lash it. Good thing about the spring, sap is running and the bark just falls off along the clumps. I'm not going to really demonstrate making this spear because I've got other videos that show how to do it. But basically, if I was going to finish this thing out, I'd use that bark, wrap this up and everything else. Obviously, I'm going to want to sharpen these off. And I could also come back and make a little hook in them, or some barbs, so that way they go in the prey but trap the prey. Long story short, carving with this thing is not going to be a problem at all. Then I would just come back and fire harden this baby after I wrap it up, and I'd go try to find me a pool. Hey Travis, thought I'd throw this in here for you, buddy. Remember we were talking about all the wild garlic and everything else on the river? Here's where I was talking about. Basically everywhere you're looking is just saturated and full of wild garlic, my friend. And I've also been noticing a lot of wild asparagus over here too, so that's kind of cool. Alright, I knew if I didn't come back and do a chopping test, I was going to have somebody upset with me. So let's go ahead and do a chop. Now, I do not use my knife in this fashion to chop here, okay? I mean, you can, but I don't. I just think that that's a waste of energy. Because what I like to do is, you guys have seen it, and you guys, I'm not the only one that does it, everybody does it. Just use your baton. I mean, there's no sense in wasting a whole bunch of unnecessary energy. Now, I'll be honest with you, this knife is not the best chopper in the world. There are definitely better choppers out there. I do not chop with my knives. In fact, I don't really like batoning with my knives. But, like I've said, it is a good idea to know what your knife can and cannot do. Now, can the knife chop? Yeah, it can chop. But like I said, I have definitely found better. So, I'm not gonna hammer through the whole thing. You can see what I did in that amount of time. And like I said, there are better choppers out here. Okay, so theoretically speaking, let's say that we did end up getting a fish and we gathered up some of that wild garlic. Now we needed to cook it. Are we going to be able to throw sparks with the spine of this and a ferro rod? I don't know. Let's find out. Well, throwing the sparks are not the problem. There we go. My tender wanted to be a pain in the ass today. You guys know about that. It's not always simple. Point is, it will throw sparks. Okay, so you guys have seen the testing. Do me a favor, stay till the very end. I'm gonna have some bonus video clips of this knife as well up. But here's the question: can that knife outperform a cheap $15 Mora? Okay, I'd be bullshitting you if I said this is hands down the world's greatest knife, it will outperform this one hands down every day of the week, blah 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 blah. This knife will still do 90% of what this knife can do. This knife might excel over this knife in a certain area, but I haven't found it yet. You guys have seen feather sticks with this, you guys have seen feather sticks with this. You have seen chopping with this, batoning, all of it. Did you see a real difference in either one of them? Here's the question. Do you honestly think that this is a one knife for the rest of your life? Do you think if you put this up to heavy use, day in and day out, that it's going to hold up? Yeah, no, it won't. This knife will fail over time, overused. Will this knife fail over time and overused? I honestly do not believe so. You guys know that I pride myself
on providing the absolute best quality leather goods and everything else I can offer. If I don't like it, I throw it away and I start all over. I'm no different when it comes to this. This has been a dream of mine for 2 years, and I would not just, well, half-ass it, basically, okay? It's not how I do things. If I don't think that this is everything that it should be, I won't continue it. But I have found that this thing is performing exactly how I wanted it to. It's a very nice knife. Couple of the other things that I talked about. Like I said, this is not the sheath that the knife is going to come with. Couple other things that's going to be included with this knife is a matching ceramic rod and a matching ferrule rod. The handle material is going to be the same. Okay. Michael and I still have a lot to work on with what kind of handle material is going to be an option. Blade finish, okay, that's a big one. You might notice that this one is actually straight out of the heat treat. Okay, that's how I like it. I like that look. That used and abused look, I like that. I don't like a nice shiny blade, mirror polished blades and everything else. The shinier an item is like this, the less likely you are to use it. So just pull it out and treat it as a tool. I mean, this is a tool. I don't know, guys. I could sit here and ramble on and on about this knife. But like I said, this has been a dream of mine for the last 2 years. And I'm finally able to see it come true and come to life. Is this knife going to be common man in price? Absolutely not. I mean, this is a handmade knife, okay? It's not machine made, it's not manufactured, it's a handmade knife. All my leather goods, handmade, you know. A lot of time goes in one of these things. The sheath alone takes approximately 7 to 8 hours. I think the knife approximately takes 8 to 9 hours. So there's a lot of time invested in this stuff. So is it common man? No, it's not. But if you want a knife that is going to be reliable and last a lifetime, if not, well, let's not even say a lifetime, multiple lifetimes. You will pass this down to your kids. Your kids will pass them down to their kids if that knife is taken care of. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This has definitely been a special one for me, and I have enjoyed using this knife, and I'm going to absolutely love using this knife in the future. If you guys have any questions on this knife, please feel free and contact me. You can get a hold of me at WolfeCustoms at yahoo.com. I can put you in contact with Michael Pryor if you have any questions about what he does with this knife. So, as always, guys, have a good one. And stay tuned for the extra footage. Now, before I move on to the extra footage, Michael will absolutely brain me if I don't do this. So you've seen me use the knife quite a bit. You can see that all the gumbies and everything else is still on the blade. 0 nicks, 0 chips. Let's see how it held up. Obviously, it's not as sharp as what it was in the very beginning, but as far as taking hair, that's still not an issue. Alright, I've said it before, if a knife cannot properly process meat, then, you know, that's also an issue. So let's take this thing here and let's cut it up a little bit and let's see what this baby will do.
3/16 blade, you know, it's gonna hinder me cutting it real thin, but I tell you, it's getting the job done. It's not a Mora by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm also not a chef. It's not like I'm used to doing this stuff on a daily basis. So someone told me once that a trick to making really thin slices of meat is to actually let it be somewhat frozen and then go and try to cut it and slice it. Alright, so you know what, really, it gets the job done, but you know, it's definitely not going to perform like an 1/8 inch blade or a kitchen knife or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, it gets the job done. Let's try this piece right here. Let's see what we can do as far as splitting it. Again, this is still that kind of that green stuff, so we'll move on to something bigger here in a minute, and we'll also move on to something dry. But let's just see how it does on this. Creates a pretty good wedge. And we'll split it. No problem at all. That's not even a challenge for that knife. Tell you what, this knife feathers like an absolute dream. Look at that. Alright, let's get away from this little stuff. Let's go right to it. Let's see what this thing can do on this right here, shall we? Now, being smart about it, you don't want to tackle something right in the middle of that size, so let's just take off the edge. Let's see if we can process this thing. I'd say that did it. Doesn't split or chop against the grain as well as I was hoping. But it's a rarity that I do this with a knife anyway. But we still needed to see if it would do it now, don't we? Does it, but not the best. And there we go.